The supply chain is in shambles, and things are just getting worse. Due to rigorous COVID testing measures enforced on China's largest metropolis after a local epidemic, air freight facilities at Shanghai Pudong Airport are clogged. More than 120 cargo ships are stranded at Shanghai-Ningbo, the city's port. Trucking expenses in Shenzhen, a key industrial center in China's southern region, have increased by 300% since the imposition of comparable COVID restrictions. Some of the world's most important ports, which used to run like clockwork, now have long queues of container ships waiting for clearance. The list keeps growing. As a result of the new restrictions, more than 1 million shipments scheduled to go by rail from China to Europe through Russia must now proceed by sea. Nickel, aluminum, wheat, and sunflower oil have all seen their prices soar as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Between the Russian-Ukraine war and China's zero-COVID policy, we may witness the destruction of the global supply chain totally in this mad rush to purchase commodities. Global pandemics and wars are too catastrophic for supply chains to withstand without some degree of exposure. New realities, on the other hand, are driving businesses to rethink how they ship their product and get ahead of interruptions as soon as possible, since backlogs have become the status quo. A black swan event is a rare and difficult to predict event that has significant ramifications, according to Richard Wilding, professor of supply chain strategy at Cranfield University in the United Kingdom. And currently, we're facing a large number of black swans on our path. Managing a supply chain used to be 80% predictable and 20% unpredictable, according to Wilding, but those ratios have now reversed. More and more organizations are utilizing systems that give more insight into the flow of products and may occasionally foresee possible choke points. A constant eye on things is essential. Global supply chains have until recently remained embarrassingly analog in an era where everything is interconnected. Companies are scurrying for more data because of supply chain disruptions, which used to be controllable in the past. For example, Everstream Analytics uses open-source information such as shipping records, news stories, and social media to compile supply chain analytics. Everstream anticipates that the closure in Shenzhen last week would have rippling effects as large as those generated by the Suez Canal blockade in March 2021 in terms of production backlogs, shipping delays, and congestion. As the congestion develops, many forms of data may be used to paint a picture. As an example, Windward uses marine information sources such as shipping transmissions, satellite images, and container data to examine supply chain patterns and threats. A firm that helps companies transport items and gives real-time monitoring data on their movements, Flexport, now has a supply chain economist who argues it's not enough to know where things are. A thriving industry exists in the development of predictive analytics. Professor Willie Shi, who studies manufacturing and supply networks, anticipates China to be impacted by further shutdowns and limitations that will put pressure on production and shipping lines as new outbreaks emerge. Shi believes the current lockdown of Shenzhen is only the tip of the iceberg. But it's evident today that the virus has spread to a wide range of locations. There's no way out for them either. It's worth noting that according to an official transcript, President Xi Jinping said last week at a Politburo meeting, China must minimize the effect of the pandemic on economic and social growth, with Shanghai, for example, opting for regional limits over a national shutdown. There are always going to be blind spots when attempting to control supply chain risk through mining data because the chain has so many different players in it. It is difficult to obtain and synthesize all the data necessary to develop a full picture because of this intricacy. As a foreign trade specialist at the Center for Strategic and International Studies think tank in Washington, D.C., William Reinsch says that the concept of completely disentangling supply chains by relocating U.S. manufacturing out of China is a fantasy. It's impossible to comprehend the extent of the ties. According to him, they aren't going to disappear completely. The supply chain was already stressed by economic and geopolitical conflicts, which contributed to the situation. A perfect storm has been brewing in the form of COVID, the war, trade instability, and the rising enmity between the United States and China on economic problems. How can the supply chain's persistent problems be resolved? Increasing capacity or decreasing demand seem to be the most plausible solutions. A European transport analyst at J.P. Morgan says that greater U.S. trucking capacity and fewer working limitations due to COVID-19 should assist in terms of capacity. Additionally, commercial airline flights, especially intercontinental flights, are expected to be a key factor in air freight capacity recovery. The expectation from inside JP Morgan is that inventory recovery in many importing nations will assist with demand. And finally, a return of consumer spending to discretionary services could add a needed boost to the health of the overall economy. If you found this breakdown of the current supply chain crisis useful, then let us know by dropping a like on this video and subscribing for more updates on the state of the global economy. Until next time.